Whatever school that you apply to, the most important thing for the college admissions officer that looks at your application, like I used to be for 19 years, is your high school performance. So your grades are the most important thing that the college admissions office will look at. They want to see that you've excelled, that you've made good grades throughout your 4 years, and that you've taken rigorous courses, APs, honors, advanced courses. So the more that you can challenge yourself, the better you will be in the college admissions process. So colleges, particularly the most selective schools, generally want to see that you're taking the toughest courses available. So if you're aspiring to places like Ivy's, Amherst, Williams, Emory, Rice, I can go on and name a number of great schools in this country. If you're looking at the most selective schools, and those are schools that admit generally 20% or less of their applicants, or in some cases 30, you need to really be aware of what kinds of courses you take, particularly you rising sophomores and rising juniors. Your test scores are probably the second most important thing for most selective schools. Now I say most selective schools, again, not everybody in some cases really values them, but for the most selective, they do. And there are some schools that are test score optional, so you don't have to take any test scores at all. So for example, Bates, Wake Forest, a lot of schools you apply to, you don't have to have the SAT, ACT, or any test. You can actually apply with a high school transcript, and I'll talk about that later. But for the majority of the elite schools, your test scores are going to be extremely important. If you want to aspire to the Yales, the Princetons, the Harvards, etc., Stanford, which is the most selective school in the United States, you're probably going to have most of your SAT ones in excess of 750. I mean, that's really what you're going to have to be in that range. 700s and up, probably more like 750 and up, because most of the applicants that applied to Yale that I reviewed for 12 years usually had extremely strong test scores. Now, there are some cases where we would take kids who did not have very powerful scores, but in most cases, the testing was pretty powerful, and I mean 800s, AP scores of 5s. Typically what we found at Yale in the admissions process is that a lot of our strongest test takers were debaters, because debaters tend to read a lot. And the more you read, the more ideas and ways of thinking you're exposed to, and you become a better writer and you become a better thinker. So reading is something that you can do that doesn't cost anything, that you're sort of unconsciously helping yourself improve your intellect as you're doing it. So I often tell people, listen, if you want to do something easy to improve your test scores, besides pay $500 for test prep and other things like that, read as much as you can, because anyone who's a voracious reader is going to speak well and they're going to write well. Don't feel anxiety or pressure or stress over what you're going to do with your life at 16, 17, 18, and 19, because you can reinvent yourself. I'm a perfect example of that. My first third of life was athletics and education. I thought at your age I'd be a pro football player. That was my goal. I said when I was in high school, I wanted to get a full scholarship, I want to play college football, I want to play pro football. That's what I sort of said, and I said I'm going to do everything I can to position myself for that. Similar to you all, you're saying, okay, I love running, I'm a great runner, I want to be a runner at school X, Y, and Z, or schools X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do whatever I can to get to that school. So that's sort of what you were saying. Then in my case, I ended up going from athletics and education to admissions, which you know about, I've talked about that earlier, and then finally now to fundraising. Again, I never would have thought I'd be a fundraiser, never. So the message is be flexible, don't worry, don't stress, because your life is going to take a lot of different courses. You should be prepared to talk about your activities and what you're passionate about and why. And maybe even the question of, well, what kind of contributions do you think you might make to Yale? Someone might ask you that. How do you see yourself taking advantage of the residential college system at Yale? What kinds of contributions do you expect to make to the music community at Cornell? Or what kind of contributions do you expect to make at UVA? They're going to ask questions like that, and you should be prepared. And then other thing, don't ask basic, mundane questions that you can find on the web. Never ask things like, how many students does UVA have? You can find all that on the website. You don't want to ask how many majors, what majors, because all of that's information you can find out on the website. Basic information, stay away from that completely. What the general takeaway I want you to have with college admissions is that it's a holistic review process, so that we look at all different kinds of things in college admissions, not just grades, courses, testing, essays, activities, but a variety of different things throughout your life. And essentially, you should really try to engage the process as much as you can. You should try to start early You should try to make sure that you follow up with things promptly, like I said. Use the Common Application. This Common Application is a very important tool and an easy tool, so use that. And make sure that you, again, make the most of it. Because a lot of things in life, and I've talked about this for years, if you put effort and time into things, you're going to get a lot out of them. But if you don't, you're not. That's the way everything is, whether it's effort and time on the track, which Coach Sanderson knows, or it's effort and time learning the stock market, or it's effort and time being a debater or a musician, etc. That if you are passionate, spending those hours, as Malcolm Gladwell says, 10,000 hours, or doing things, you're going to be very successful in college admissions too. And then finally, don't be afraid again of not having a place to go, because most schools do admit the majority of applications. What I mean by majority is they admit 50% or more of the people who apply. I will tell you that, obviously many of you will be recruited athletes, and that will make a difference. Just like if you are a recruited cellist for some schools. Some schools value music talent, and they really put a heavy premium on your talent with a musical instrument or with voice. So those things can help you.